Now, the vagus nerve is one of those things that's pretty easy to stimulate, very easy to access. In fact, a lot of the ancient wisdoms, Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine practices were very vagal oriented, because the more you can control our biological states and improve heart rate variability, the healthier we'll be, the better we can recover. Our own defenses will be much more prevalent, and we're not relying on external substances to manipulate one system at the expense of others. So the vagus nerve is instrumental in healing and recovery and shutting down the stress. We can engage anytime we want. Now, the activities that do it most successfully include meditation. So now we've got this: meditation can drive oxytocin and activate the vagus nerve. Now, scientists were looking at how long does one have to meditate and how successful do you have to be at meditation in order to activate the vagus nerve. Now, I have to say I was quite dubious. I was quite suspect of the power of meditation, even the power of yoga, going into my research for the stress code. And I wasn't a practitioner myself. I actually, I thought it was a good concept, and if Harvard are embracing it, they're onto something. But I didn't really value it or appreciate it until I finished my book. Then it became a completely different context, and it became a different reality for me altogether. So fundamentally, it was a great paper looking at genetic changes in response to meditation. What they found was that after 12 minutes of meditation, the changes, the shifts are going to be taking place in the immune system. Vagus nerve will be strongly activated, and you're going to be recalibrating your whole biological state. So 12 minutes is pretty easy for most individuals. You don't have to master it. It's all about taking those distracted thoughts and the chaos that's going in your head and trying to filter them into one position or one state, whether it's focusing on breathing or whether it's focusing on a mantra, whatever it is. And it's not about the success of being able to do it brilliantly. It's about trying to do it and keep pulling yourself into the step, pulling yourself. We get better at it. It's like a muscle. You get far more successful at it. But there was a brilliant study, and it was another Harvard study. I think it was over a 12-week period of time, comparing typical stress management techniques, like very basic, just the exercise, a little bit better on the diet, and kind of manage your lifestyle, and compare it to meditation and how people responded to different stresses. And what they found was that the typical stress responses, not the strategy that I'm putting forward today, but the typical stress management responses have very little effect on our stress axis at all. Nothing really happens. So we do, that's what I was mentioning earlier, that it's very tactical. We kind of apply a little bit of this, apply a little bit of that, and nothing really transpires. And then we kind of give up and carry on with our old life. But what they found, the meditation group, their response to stress, the reaction biologically, cognitively, behaviorally, on every level, had shifted in a 12-week period that was almost incomprehensible.
Wow.
But meditation is just one of those elements. Yoga is a very powerful vagal stimulator, and it was a brilliant study. It was an Indian study comparing yoga to antidepressants in terms of managing depression. So what they did was they took a group, I think it was 58 or 50 odd participants in the group, all diagnosed with depression. I think it was unipolar depression. All significant as well. It was severe depression, and they looked at if there were biological markers. There were biological markers. All of them had raised cortisol to the extent of 30% or higher. They then monitored basically they created 3 groups and monitored them over this period of 3 months. Now, it was a very brave study, because what they were going to do is take 2 groups or 1 group off antidepressants completely. 1 group was purely antidepressants over that period of time. I'm not going to mention the name of the antidepressant, but 12 weeks of antidepressant therapy to assess whether antidepressant therapy was going to help with the depression, and if it was going to make a biological difference. The other group was a combination of yoga, which will stimulate the vagus nerve and shut off stress, and antidepressants. And the last group was the real brave group, randomly assigned, was just yoga. Now, at the end of the study, every single participant's impression scores improved. Depression from a psychological and behavioral perspective had shifted completely in every single member of the group, all 50 participants. But when they looked at those individuals taking the antidepressants and they looked at cortisol, what they found was over this 12-week period of time, cortisol levels had actually risen a little bit. So from a surface perspective or external perspective, things were better, but internally the chaos was there. Nothing had really shifted on a biological level. So a lot of the adverse effects of the stresses and of that emotional state were still entrenching themselves and manifesting. They then looked at the yoga antidepressant group in combination. And what they found was that this particular group, there was no raise in cortisol, but it hadn't dropped either. So it was still a 30% elevation in cortisol on average. But depression symptoms had diminished, and that was it. That was the outcome. And then they looked at the yoga group, who also, their depression scores had significantly diminished. Many of the individuals were experiencing depression following the daily yoga experience and exposure. And what they looked at cortisol, most of their cortisol, the vast majority of the participants in the group, their cortisol had dropped by 20%, meaning it was 10% over baseline at most.
Sure. Wow.
So we have this biological shift and this behavioral and cognitive shift that occurred in response to yoga. And it's not yoga per se. And I certainly wouldn't be experimenting with just yoga and no antidepressants. I mean, that's a very brave position to take. But it does show the power of the vagus nerve on biological regulation. And if we did yoga, same thing here is about 12 to 15 minutes on a regular basis, or meditation, we're stimulating the vagus nerve. But there's many other activities. Some of the most powerful vagal activators, acupuncture, one of the most powerful means of accessing the vagus nerve. In seconds, 30 seconds, there's major transformations. If you're looking at osteopathy and physical therapy and chiropractic, all have a very positive effect on the vagus nerve. Obviously, there's a dependency. You have to have the session on a regular basis, but with the vagus nerve, that's what it's about. It's about saying that I'm having a tough day. Let me shut down. Let me shut down today. And the more you shut down, the more agile this whole system becomes. And the stress axis fundamentally is about heart rate variability. The stronger you can adjust your system and quicker you can adjust your system, the less stress is going to have an effect on you. And it's all training. The other activities that we intuitively have migrated to is cold immersion, specifically on the face. So the vagus nerve has very strong connections to the trigeminal nerve, the nerve that supplies most of the face. And when we stimulate the trigeminal nerve through cold water immersion or exposure about 10 degrees or less, we have this massive activation of the vagus nerve, and we see heart rate drop, blood pressure come down a little bit, palms will stop sweating, everything will recalibrate in a period of 30 seconds. They actually use cold face immersion to test the strength of the vagus nerve. That is the official test for the vagus nerve. But it's not just cold immersion, it's water immersion as well. And I always wondered what a guy like Lewis Pugh would be doing. Like, why would you do that? Why would you jump into the ocean? It is absolutely freezing. I mean, it's a couple of degrees at most. And you're addicted to it. You can't stop. Now, there's two amazing things that happen with cold immersion. One is the vagus nerve. So you got on the face, cold immersion, vagus nerve, trigeminal nerve stimulated, vagus nerve activated, stress shut down, gone, done. Thanks for coming. You're back to normal. But the other thing that happens with water submersion is the minute your head goes under the water, you activate a primitive reflex known as the dive reflex. Now, the dive reflex is about survival. It's all about our subconscious saying that I don't know if I'm coming up or how long I'm going to be down. Guys, we're going to shut down the team. Everyone, biological, heart down, blood pressure down, glucose down. Everyone, you shutting down whether you like it or not, because I'm submerged. I don't know what's going to happen next. You consciously know you're coming up. But subconsciously, anything could happen, and it's the body's preparing. So within a couple of seconds, you've also recalibrated. And I use swimming a lot in summers as that recalibration. But just a little bit on, cold is, with Wim Hof and Lewis Pugh, cold has become this thing at the moment. And there's so many benefits to it. But the greatest benefit in the stress space of cold exposure, and I'm not talking about health, the search and family being activated and all these like fundamental shifts that take place are so positive in longevity. But I'm talking specifically stress, is that it's an incredible trigger for a molecule known as neuropeptide Y. So neuropeptide Y, its job, it is primary role, it's released to reduce anxiety. And when you get into a cold environment between around 10 and 12 or 10 and 15 degrees centigrade, and you emerge for minutes or longer, neuropeptide Y floods through the brain, and you've got this whole chaotic state and all the worry and all the fears and all the chaos you've created and drama you've created in your own head dissipated. The anti-anxiety molecule has arrived. It's a neuropeptide like oxytocin, and it's this incredible recalibration. So we've got fundamentally so many options. We've got massage, we've got acupuncture, we've got visceral osteopathy, we've got meditation, we've got yoga, we've got cold submersion, we've got cold face immersion. We've got so many options in which we can activate the vagus nerve and transform our reality at that moment. The trick is to do it.